Welcome everyone to Postpartum in the Raw. We are talking to real parents that have real challenges, really raw. So today we are speaking with Chenae Day, who is our guest. Welcome, Chenae. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us and being willing to talk about your postpartum experience. And so as we get started, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself for our audience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. So I am Chenae, like you said. I'm a physical therapist and a copywriter and also a sleep consultant. So my postpartum experiences definitely pushed me into wanting to help moms because I had such drastically different experiences. And so, now I really enjoy helping moms. And my background, like I said, is in physical therapy and copywriting. So I'm just kind of figuring everything out. And I do love sharing my postpartum story because I just was shocked, basically, going into.
So let's talk about it. You have two postpartum experiences that you went through, and I know that you mentioned that they were different. So how were these postpartum experiences different, and why was that surprising to you?
Yeah, so my first was born in 2018, and I'm just like a classic type A, like achiever, honor roll, blah, 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 like just nothing's hard. I'm just going to achieve anything I put my mind to. So if I want to be a mom, I'm going to be a great mom, obviously, right? Let's go. So yeah, baby's born. That first night home from the hospital was just like a smack in the face doesn't even begin to describe. I was like, why? Who let me come home with this baby? Why was I allowed to leave anywhere safe? But yeah, I mean, and then no sleep. I was petrified that she was going to die every second. So I like watched her sleep. And then when she's awake, I'm awake. And I had to go back to work at 6 weeks. So no sleep, working. And then I actually fell asleep at the wheel one day driving to work. And I mean, thankfully, nobody got hurt, but it was so scary. And that's the time when I realized, like, I've got to do something. Like, I cannot keep doing what I'm doing, which is not sleeping, doing my best to keep up with breastfeeding because it was so important to me. And then working full time. Obviously, it was not sustainable. And then sleeping did help a lot, but I still suffered from postpartum anxiety, ended up having suicidal thoughts and feeling like everyone would just be better off if I was just gone because I felt like I was just failing in every aspect of life. And I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about it because, again, high achiever, you have to present like everything is fine. Everything's fine. So that was very hard and scary. I had never experienced some of the emotions that I was feeling. So like rage, I felt rage for the first time in my life. And I was like, what is going on with my body? So that was hard. When my son was born 2 years later, it was a completely different experience. Obviously I was equipped with different tools. I'd been through this once before, but COVID, I was working from home, so I didn't have to leave as quickly. But yeah, it was just a whole different experience. I used herbs and different homeopathics to kind of aid in that healing process, that just things that I were not aware of the first time around. And it was just like night and day. And when I got pregnant with my son, my second, I remember being just like terrified because why would I have another baby? Like I can't, we used fertility treatment to get pregnant with my first. So I was like, my body don't know what to do. So I'm not worried about it. So we were talking about scheduling my husband's vasectomy the next week and found out I was pregnant. So I was done and God had other plans. But like, I'm so thankful. And I went through a phase of like dealing with the guilt as well for like even not wanting him, but he was so amazing. And that second postpartum experience taught me like how amazing postpartum and motherhood can be. So yeah, very stark differences.
So I wanna lean in a little bit. A lot of people may not be aware of the several different perinatal mood disorders. We hear a lot about postpartum depression. We don't hear as much about postpartum anxiety or even postpartum psychosis. And so what I've seen personally as a birth worker, you mentioned that you were type A. What I notice, and this is not 100%, but what I do notice is that if certain people have a proclivity towards depression or anxiety, that can be a key indicator into which perinatal mood disorder may show up in an exacerbated way after they have their child. So with my type A clients, almost always I see some level of anxiety around, like, it has to be perfect, it has to be like this, or then some other level of worry postpartum that really is more of a postpartum anxiety than a depression. And so thank you for highlighting that and really speaking to that, because there's a level of self-awareness that I think is important for people to have before they go on this journey. If they can, like, if not, you're going to figure it out and you're going to be like, oh my God, this is who I really am. But I would love to hear about your journey towards discovering, like, how to support yourself better for the second go round, because it sounds like you had herbal support. I'm guessing you did more research. You maybe had a more community support surrounding you that made that transition a little easier the second go around. So how did you do it, and what did that look like as you were cultivating your community and resources for your second postpartum experience?
Yeah. I always joke that my son is going to be like a reader or like a scholar, because that's like all I did while I was pregnant with him. Of course, with my daughter, like I said, I was petrified that she was going to die. So the way that my brain works is if I understand something better, I'm able to, make a plan or prepare or whatever. If I have the resources to mitigate the risk that I'm so scared of, then I feel a lot better. So I just spent all my time on PubMed, like just researching literature, articles. What does the research say? Like, what is SIDS? Where does it come from? Why do babies stop breathing in their sleep? Like, because if I don't understand why it's happening, then I'm just going to sit there and stare at you all night to make sure that, that you stay alive. So that was a big part of it, like digging into that. And that, of course, just led me to like other health things, like how to prevent this, how to prevent that, and I've always been, open-minded, and, like I didn't necessarily grow up with, I was military brat. So I grew up with all the regular, like Western medicine, just not really like aware that there were other options. And so just kind of leaning into like, what else out there exists besides, Tylenol for a headache or whatever. And just kind of leaning into that, and postpartum, especially breastfeeding, I was looking for natural options to support myself while also not putting my child at risk, which everything comes with a risk. I totally understand that. But it was just like, I wanted to know all of the options and then make that decision for myself. So yeah, it was just kind of out of literally my education came from a place of fear. Like, I need to know more. And for me, knowing more makes me feel better. So.
No, I totally understand. I'm a researcher by nature, and I like to immerse myself in experiences to learn as well. And so for the better of the last 20 years or so, especially once I had my oldest daughter, I was like, I want to do things differently. She remembered, she's like, Mom, I didn't even have a piece of candy till I was 7. Like, I was like hardcore back in the day. Now my son does not have the same story, so I'm not even going to hold you. That's not reality. By the time you get all the way to, you're like, oh my God. But that necessity, right? When I hear the researcher in you and your desire to like not experience that again. There's so often, a lot of us, we are motivated by poor interactions, For me, it was a poor interaction with a doctor with my first daughter that prescribed me a medicine that would have caused a spontaneous abortion. And only because of my procrastination did I not go and pick it up from the pharmacy. And gratefully and thankfully, my mother is a physician and she knows that I procrastinate. So she called and she's like, hey, what happened at your appointment, whatever. And I'm just kind of casually telling, oh yeah, the doctor prescribed blah, 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 blah. She's like, hold on, wait a second. And she goes in her book of contraindications. And she's like, you shouldn't have been prescribed that medicine in your second trimester. That would have caused you to miscarry. And so at that point, I was like, oh no, honey, what is the natural? I don't care if it's garlic, is it onion? What are we doing? Because that is that was a life or death thing. And for so many people, postpartum is also life or death. And, I applaud you for your frankness and your openness, even talking about, that suicidal ideation and all of that, because in a lot of our communities, we don't talk about those challenges, but it's also how could we be supported? How can we get help? Yeah. How can the people that do love us show up for us in ways that are actually valuable for us if they don't know how we're struggling? Exactly. And so you said that you did homeopathic medicine, and then you also utilized herbs as well.
Yes.
Did you do anything that was helpful for your anxiety, or was it just galactagogues to help you with milk production? What were you looking for to support you, and what were some of those things that you found really helpful for you postpartum with the herbs and the homeopathic medicine?
So specifically for the mental health, I found, and I don't even know if I found it or if my midwife gave it to me, but there is a tincture called Nurtured Mother, and I think it's by Birth Song Botanicals, if I remember correctly. It has mother's wort, and I'm trying to remember what else it has. I think lemon balm might be in there.
Probably.
I don't care what it is. What does it do? Help me feel better? Okay. So I just started taking it, and I was just taking the drops under my tongue, and I think it said up to 5 times a day, and I'm like 4 or 5. Okay. As much as I could possibly take it. Looked up every single ingredient, made sure I was comfortable. Even though it's marketed to moms and nursing moms, I still had to make sure, but I was like, look, I'm not seeing anything crazy, so I'm gonna just go for it. And it was, I want to say insane, because I just felt like me, and I had energy, and I wasn't crying all the time. There wasn't baby blues. I was like, what to be sad about? I have this beautiful baby. I have this great life. Everything's great. And the funniest part about it was, I was in the kitchen sobbing one day, and my husband comes in. He was like, did you run out of your herbs? And I was like, I did. I ran out. And he's like, can I order it, or
fresh shipping overnight? What do we need?
Express, yes. So yeah, literally, and it was night and day. When I did not have those, it was not good. And then when I had them, it was great. And of course, there's a part of me that's like, am I dependent on this? But I don't feel like I'm dependent on it. It was just my body needed other support at that time, and that's okay. It's not like I'm still taking it today, as I'm not on it forever, It was just something that was so helpful, and I just wish I had it the first time, but I know I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I did, and thank God I made it, honestly, through that first postpartum experience. You said, people don't know how to support us. I didn't know what to even ask for. I didn't feel like I had a voice to say what I needed. I didn't even know what I needed, honestly. So, I had a support system, but what am I going to tell them? I want to die.
What did your support system look like during your first experience? And then what did it look like after? And even if it were the same people, how did you communicate to them what your actual needs were the first time versus the second time? And what did that really look like in terms of how you needed other people to show up and support?
So interestingly, the first time I had, like my work mates, and they set up a meal train for me and got us some like gift cards and sent us meals and stuff like that. I don't know that, I don't know that I necessarily needed that so much as I needed more like the emotional support and like the safe space to be able to say like, I'm not okay. I don't feel like I had that. I didn't feel like I could tell that to my husband. We were dealing with some infidelity issues at that time. And I just was like, I'm not gonna tell you, you don't care, And then my mom, I think, was kind of going through her own transition of like watching me and probably feeling like helpless. Like, I don't know how to help her, and I wasn't saying anything. I was just going, like literally, like again, fell asleep at the wheel. Like, who does that? That's it. So frustrating to me to be like that's me. I did that. But yeah, like my husband, my mom, I had some, some coworkers. I wouldn't necessarily call them friends, but it was just like, yeah, it was okay. It was an okay support system. But again, nobody local that I felt like I could really like express how I was feeling to. And then the second time around, my husband and I were in a much better place. I feel like so this is 2020, June 2020 is when my son was born. So, the world was, so definitely didn't have anything in person, no baby shower, nothing. But I had also grown through those past couple of years of just some like self exploration and, there's just like the whole pregnancy, trying to process being pregnant with a boy, and I'm going to have a Black son in America in 2020. So it was just a lot of processing on my own part, counseling. And I do feel like I started to find my voice as well, not 100%, but I was able to say, when you wash my 5,000 pump parts, it makes me feel 1,000% better because it's one less thing I have to do. And I was able to say to my husband, like, filling up that 40-ounce water bottle again and again and again and again, it's exhausting. Can you please just keep my water filled? Like, when you walk past it, can you just fill it up, please? And so I feel like it was like little incremental things like that, but they add up. Yeah. But again, I didn't know to ask for them. I didn't even know the first time around. So yeah, my support system, I think really people around me look to me for like guidance. I don't have the like Hallmark movie, like guy who just swoops in and, like knows exactly what you need or whatever. Like, I don't know, that like fairy tale that we kind of grew up with. So, but I think I was kind of expecting it, like I'm gonna have a baby and my husband's gonna like miraculously shapeshift into a whole new person who does all these different things. And like, that didn't happen. Yeah. So I learned I have to say those things.
You're bringing up an important point, and I think it's something that we really need to lean into a little bit better in our society, and that's nurturing the mother. Mm-hmm. A lot of times women in any capacity, even as young girls in their homes, as teenagers, whatever, people are relying on them for certain things in their family, in their friend groups, in their careers. And when it comes time, I think sometimes we do have this false assumption that, hey, I do all of this. I consider people so often that I shouldn't even have to ask, or it's going to be, like you said, this instant shape shifting that happens for all the people in my life that I shape shift for. And then when it doesn't happen, not only are you there in a vulnerable position, but then you're disappointed, and it is the small incremental things. And then in your mind, you're like, well, I do this, and you can't even fill up this bottle of water. And so, yep. Bringing forward that conversation and the terminology around nurturing the mother, like mothers need mothering right when they give birth, and not everyone has a mother to do that for them. Not everyone has a community, but how can we, I'm a firm believer that the more self-development work you do, there's certain aspects, even when it comes for advocating for yourself in the birthing space, and even postpartum, like the more sound you are and who you are, the more you are in tune and have a high level of self-awareness, the better you'll be able to communicate to the people around you. And so I love that you brought up that point, but I also just love like you bringing forward that notion like, hey, it's the small things that help a mom feel nurtured in those moments. It's a small thing to hold the baby. I just want to take a shower.
Please.
I just want to take a nap. It might just be 2 hours, but like if you're going to sit and watch TV anyway, why don't you just pop the baby on your lap and y'all watch TV together?
Right, exactly.
It means a lot. It means a lot here. And so I really appreciate that you brought that up. So your first experience, you had like crazy lack of sleep. Talk to us about how those experiences led you to becoming a sleep coach for parents to help them not experience what it is that you've experienced.
Yeah. So lack of sleep, and the reason behind that with my first was because my husband said, well, she's not going to cry, just so you know. I said, okay, baby's not going to cry. So for my daughter's like first 6.5, 7 months of life, she didn't cry. There was no crying. She made a noise. You go straight to the baby. What does she need? Diaper, water, hold, cuddle, contact nap, co-sleep, everything. She didn't cry. She didn't cry at all. And I thought we were doing great. I was like, my baby doesn't cry, da 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 da. Mind you, I was not sleeping, but I had no really like expectation of like how long that lack of sleep was like supposed to last. And I also had this presumption that everything you do as a mom is instinct, and you will automatically know what your baby needs all the time. So, and that's what you do. If your baby cries, that means she needs to be held. So you go pick her up, and then if that means you're standing in her room because you can't sit down, you stand up and hold the baby for 2 hours from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. and then you could put her down, then that's what you do. And I had no concept that like was not sustainable, or like that there was any other like option. I just had no idea. And so I worked with a sleep consultant the first time, and it helped. Obviously, you know, she started sleeping better. I used a method where I stayed in the room with her. I tried cry it out, and I just couldn't do it. I had tried for about 6 minutes, and that's all I got. And I had to go back in, and I was like, I can't do this. So I needed to find something else. So I found a method that helped me because I was able to be with her while she was learning how to connect these sleep cycles that basically she had never done that before. If she woke up at the end of a sleep cycle, I just picked her up, and now she's awake. So whatever. So I learned a lot about sleep from that experience. And the other thing that I did differently the second time around was I did have a postpartum doula. I didn't even know that was the first time around. So I had a postpartum doula who kind of explained a little bit more about what had happened, you know, with her sleep. And with my son, the second time around, I really didn't even have to sleep train him, because I just had a whole different expectation and like understanding of sleep. And I wasn't, number one, expecting anything as far as like him to be the same as my daughter. I know every kid is different. But yeah, I just had a lot of different expectations around sleep. And so he did contact naps with the nanny during the day, co-slept during the night, and then we kind of transitioned him into his crib when I was ready and he was ready. And there really wasn't any like training involved. So both of those, it kind of, again, highlighted for me, like I was kind of under the impression that like, well, sleep training is this. It's this one thing where you sit with the baby and you help them learn to fall asleep by supporting them or cry it out. But then having my son, I was like, oh, so there's like other ways to do it too. And so I've branched out and created Gentle Sleep Training, which is my handle on Instagram. And I share with parents. I've done all the research on all the things, on all the internet, on Google, and all the studies to just kind of see like, what are the options, you know, just like everything else, what's out there, what exists for sleep, and how do different babies learn how to sleep, and what are like the variables to consider. And so when I work with families now, I share all the options, full spectrum, and help them decide. Because I don't know your baby. You know your baby, I don't. I just know a lot about sleep because I spent lots and lots of time learning about it because I'm passionate about it. So yeah, we talk, I tell you all about sleep, and you can say, I think this sounds like a good idea. And I can tell you, yeah, that might sound a good idea. Here's some things to consider. We can try this. If it's not working, we'll try something else. And we come up with a plan A and a plan B, and then move forward and try to help you reach your sleep goals, whatever those are. That might be co-sleeping. It might be having the baby in the room. It might be transitioning to a crib in another room, whatever you need. I feel like, again, what I didn't have, that's what I'm trying to provide, is the space for moms to make an educated choice, an informed choice on how to move forward and get more sleep. So.
Absolutely. And I love that because, you know, we live in a time where everything is so extreme. It's like you have to be like this or you have to be like that. And the fact of the matter is we just need options. We need to be able to take into consideration our personality, our child's personality, our family's needs. And so I love that you were able to present all these different options and how families can operate to let them choose and to be able to take a moment to assess their baby, assess themselves and what works. Because, you know, any parent that has more than one child, you know, every child is different. And it's not just that the pregnancy and the birth experience is different. It's like, no, you know, my oldest was sleeping for 12 hours after 1 month. And I was like, oh, like, seriously, if I put her to bed and she's still like that, she's in college now, she's still like that. And so if she goes to bed at 8, she won't wake up until 8. She goes to bed at midnight, she won't wake up until noon. Like, she's a 12-hour cadence person.
Yeah.
And my last two, definitely not. Let's just say that.
What is going on? Why are you doing this? You're not the same. That's the first one. What are you doing?
I was blown away, let's say. And so, it was the opposite, right? Because my first child was so, like, seamless. I was like, oh, yeah. And the last two were not, but even in their being different, they were also very different from one another. And so, you know, it's so important to say, you know what, I'm still the same person, right? But I'm dealing with different children. And then, you know, my middle daughter and I were talking today, and I was like, yeah, like, I got to get my coffee and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, I don't even like coffee. And she's like, please, says the person that drinks coffee every day. And I'm like, no. I only started drinking coffee after your little brother. Like, do you remember you had a whole life where I didn't drink coffee at all? And then he came and I'm like, I have no energy anymore. And so I've become a new woman that's like about coffee just off the strength of having this third child. And that's just what it is. And so we also evolve and you know, our bodies are stripped of different nutrients and stuff during each experience. And we might need additional support in different ways and in different seasons, but it's okay. It's a part of the thing, right?
Yeah.
So we are getting ready to wrap up, and I know that you gave your Instagram handle, but I would love to just give you a minute or so to just share about your business, what you're doing with families, and how people can stay in contact with you.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. So quickest way to find me is on Instagram at Gentle Sleep Training. And I'm in the process of developing a full postpartum program because I think that sleep is one piece of the puzzle. But I know, as you know, that there's way more to it. And like I said, the herbs that helped me and the emotional processing and healing from past trauma and stuff like that helped me. I know that that's important for moms as well. So for now, though, I am focusing on sleep because that is such a big portion of what helped me. So yeah, Instagram, DM, and we can get started. We can work together one-on-one, or I have group options as well that are a little bit more cost effective. So I understand that, you know, money is a barrier for everyone all the time, but especially right now. So yeah, I like to work with families and just do what I can. I've done consults for free before, based on a situation. And I have, again, different pricing options based on like how much support you're looking for, basically. Some moms are like, just give me the information. I'm like, okay, here, but other times, especially I see moms like with a little bit more anxiety, might need a little bit more hand holding or like, no, what do I do next? And what do I do next? And like reminding, and I can be that like coach, best friend type of person for you as well. So yeah, thank you.
I love that. And I love what you're doing. This postpartum work is so important. Moms need to be nurtured. We need to be supported in all the ways. I definitely believe in a mind, body, spirit approach to everything. Yeah. Not just our relationships, our parenting, ourselves, our relationship with ourselves, our relationships with the community around us. And so hearing, even you just mentioned it lightly, but healing your traumas, being self-aware about who you are, what you're bringing to the table, understanding your own personality and how that can show up for you in your postpartum season or just as a person, being pregnant, married, whatever the case may be, like all of it matters. And so I love that you've taken time to do that and that you had an amazing second postpartum experience. And I think that that's going to be very encouraging for those who may have had a horrible experience. And they might be a little gun shy like you were. Like, I'm never doing that again.
Let's go.
Like, hey, with intentionality, with, making certain choices that they could potentially as well have an amazing and healing postpartum. So Thank you so much, Chenae, for joining us at Postpartum in the Raw, for being vulnerable, for sharing with us the reels of your postpartum experience. And I hope that our audience follows you, gets the support they need if they're a parent listening, struggling with sleep. And we really appreciate you showing up for us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy, and I thank you for the work that you're doing as well. So thank you.
Thank you.